Hey everyone, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter breakdown for chapter 296, which is the official next arc of the My Hero Academia manga, covering what is happening after the Paranormal Liberation War arc, which has been going on for months now. And it's already setting up to be one, that there's not a lot of downtime, and two, a couple of really interesting realizations or clarifications, and then a death or two that I really want to talk through, because there's been so much that kind of happened in this chapter. Even though it went by super quick when I was reading it, it felt like there's a couple of big things I want to take out there and kind of talk through a little bit before understanding what's going to be happening in these next couple of chapters, which are probably going to be just as big and as impactful as these last 20. So it starts off with All For One / Shigaraki escaping battlefield with the remaining pro heroes that did kind of survive that first wave, going after them, which we do see Pixie Bob, President Mike, Wash, 13, and a couple other ones that we haven't seen in a while, and I think were presumed dead because they were in that first wave where a lot of them were wiped out. But it was great to see so many of those with a 13 face reveal, which was super cool. We were actually just talking about that on the Class 1A podcast the other day. We haven't seen 13. We didn't even know there's really a person underneath there or anything. But in fact, there is actually a person underneath there. So it was super cool to see that. But unfortunately, the high-end distractions, even though we took down a few of them, All For One, Spinner, Dobby, Skeptic, and a couple of other villains did escape. However, we do see back at the villa that Redestructo and then a bunch of other lieutenants of the Paranormal Liberation have been taken down. I think it was something like 13 or 16,000 villains or the Paranormal Liberation army were captured, and only 132 got away. So that is pretty good odds of how many people were taken down, and it's still an overwhelming victory for the heroes. But with All For One getting away, that is not going to be good news, and almost every single hero that was part of this fight is in very gruesome shape. Also, we do learn that at one point during it, Froppy and Uravity do let the police or the other heroes know that Toga was around. So Toga did not get away with the League of Villains, so we have no idea where she is, what her next steps are, what her next arc will be. So that's something we can talk about in a second. But overall, we do get a couple pages of just Froppy and Uravity helping save people that have just been done with all the damage from Machia, and it's not looking good. There's a little boy under the building. Uravity had to go and save the wife from an apartment building that was collapsing. And during all of that, as they're saving people, Uraraka notices this pro hero just standing there in the middle, like, this is too much. I can't take this. I'm getting shivers right now just kind of talking about it. That it was just too much for a pro hero that's seen so much. And he ends this kind of scene with saying, I need to find a new profession. So not only has this battle been so impactful on the heroes and what we think society as a whole is going to see heroes after this, but it's to a point that professional heroes no longer want to be heroes after dealing with such a big and emotional fight, seeing so many of their friends die probably. So that's such a cool scene that you don't see too often, of seeing pretty much everyone's emotional state after this battle. But we do go back to All For One, or just a third party, kind of talking through what happened to Tomura. So Shigaraki actually died the second Mirko destroyed his capsule. There was a short burst of electricity that revived him enough off of his hatred and goals, and that's what drove him. All of the damage he did during this fight wasn't actually Shigaraki. It was only his dreams and goals pushing his body at 75% to do it. So he was never actually alive during the whole thing, which is super interesting, because at the end of the last chapter, we had Deku talking about, for a second there, you looked like you needed to be saved. So it seemed like what Deku was setting up to have this kind of redemption arc to share, to save Tomura Shigaraki, but now Shigaraki's dead, so there's maybe a chance that he can come alive or be revived. It's kind of a weird dynamic that they set up there, where we thought it was going one way with Deku's comment, and now it's kind of up in the air. But we'll get back to what that body's doing there. But we do get a chance to see all of the casualties. Native, which was the one that was saved during the Stain arc, and then Cross, Majestic, Ekless, and Midnight were all confirmed deaths. And Midnight's death was obviously the one that is going to shake a lot of people. We actually see a bunch of students from Class 1A overlooking Midnight's body crying, and we saw her mask just kind of on the ground and crumbles, and that wasn't something that I was expecting to see here. I expected there to be death. I didn't expect all of the main characters to get through, but Midnight was not the one that I was expecting. And we still have a lot of heroes out there that we don't know their exact state, such as Eraserhead. We don't see him at all really during this chapter, and he was one that was in deadly shape, along with Gran Torino. But we also do get a chance to see kind of what society is looking at as a whole right now. People talking about this being the end of Endeavor's career, how he better have a statement ready and all that kind of tomorrow, or that, hey, things are fine, and just that society doesn't know how to treat Endeavor right now, or society, or this war as a whole, is that it's just shaking and there's a lot of uncertainty out there. At the end of that kind of bouncing around the world, seeing these people talk, we see that Deku and Endeavor are both being treated for their injuries, who are probably in one of the worst shapes as well, both of them just going beyond Plus Ultra at this point. But to end the chapter, setting up what's going to be happening, maybe even in the next chapter, is All For One's real body senses Tomura's body somewhere in the forest around the prison, and his conscience tells Shigaraki's body that he's not going to give everyone a rest a day, or that there is no tomorrow's promise, and then he orders the remaining near high-end Nomus to go and break his body free. So, chapter 296 pretty much sets up what I'm assuming 297 is going to be, which is this prison break, and I'm assuming it's not going to be too much resistance, and All For One is probably going to get out of Tartarus. I don't think there's really even a conversation about that yet, because one, heroes aren't even really that nearby, and I don't know who are going to be left to stop there unless All Might somehow stops in, but it also opens the questions of, are we going to see two All For One like body creatures in one place? Will Shigaraki's body be able to continue going and fighting alongside All For One's body? There's so many questions, but with the recent comments that the series may be ending sooner than we think, this All For One versus Deku fight may be coming soon and may be the final jump, which feels quick, but after everything that's happened these last chapters, how could they go back to school? I mean, you can't tell me that they're going to just do this, defeat All For One, and then go back to year 2 of UA, year 3 of UA. I mean, Hero Society as a whole is going to be shaken. Most of the top heroes are dead or severely injured, maybe never even fighting again, or there's just no faith in them anymore. So a lot of these Bakugo Deku are going to have to fill in those ranking spots, especially after defeating All For One. So I don't want the series to end, of course, but this All For One Deku fight is not where I thought the series was going to go or end. And I wouldn't love that. I thought the Shigaraki, the next generation All For One, One For All, but thinking about more with All For One's character, he doesn't really care about anyone. He's using Shigaraki as a method to break him out of Tartarus right now in the body that was left over, which was ultimately always his goal. So it does kind of make sense that it's going to come back to All For One versus Deku instead of Shigaraki versus Deku for the final fight, because it makes sense of how the quirks and the histories of the two kind of main players in the universe interact and treat their quirks and how important they are in themselves. So no idea what's going to happen in 297. 300 is right around the corner, which is going to be a big one. So that could also be the actual breakout of All For One, or it could be some beginning of a big fight or something like that. So 300 being right around the corner is super exciting, because every 100 chapters, you know you're either going to get something big, even though the war arc just ended. So not too much else to say. I added a little more context kind of when going through the recap versus going afterwards, but 297 is going to be amazing. And I don't think we're going to get as much of a society look of how they view heroes versus actually more action right away, which I have no idea how that's going to happen. I have no idea who's going to come into the fight, but nonetheless, it's super, super exciting. But if you guys did enjoy this chapter breakdown or just my thoughts and discussion about chapter 296, please do make sure to subscribe and like the video, leave a comments, all that kind of stuff. And then as always, I've mentioned before, I do a weekly My Hero Academia podcast called the Class 1A Podcast that you can find on YouTube now, each and every episode, or you can also find it on all podcasting platforms across the world. But with that, I will leave you all today. Hope you guys all enjoyed this chapter, and I'll be back here next week for chapter 297.